So now once the missing values are handled and appropriate measures are taken, after the data is pre-processed, we'll calculate the RFM matrix. So here we are looking at recency, frequency, and monetary. So recency would be time since last transaction, frequency would be total number of transaction, and monetary would be the total transaction value. In this stage, we'll also categorize the merchants under different categories, because and from the data perspective, we would be having merchant A, merchant B, merchant C. It is our responsibility, or it is our headache to categorize merchant A, B under the same category. Say merchant A, B could be under restaurants. Another category of merchants could be under multiplex, ATM, retail, etc. And for each customer, we'll calculate the proportion or the amount which has been spent under each merchant category. So this would form the data pre-processing state, where we would prepare the data in the right format and in the right way in order to carry out the further analysis. Now, if we go to the next step, which is the third step, we see that it is the RFM analysis and segmentation. So in this step, we would first perform the RFM analysis. So RFM analysis is based on the RFM matrix, where we split the matrix into segments, and we define each customer segment. So an example of segmenting or naming this customer could be, one segment could be active customer, the second could be at risk customers, the third category of customer could be churn customers based on the recency factors. So active would be some customers which are still active, second at risk, they are at the risk of churning out or won't be retained, and the third are the customers who have not transacted since a very long time, and we assume that they are almost churned. So this is how you carry out the RFM analysis. So it could be, so an example of categorizing would be, since if we take the recency factor, that is time since last transaction, you could categorize different customers as, if the time since last transaction value is between 0 to 30 days, the segment could be active customers. If it is between 30 to 60 days, the segment of customers could be at risk customers. If the time since last transaction is more than 60 days, we would categorize those customers as churn, because we assume that those customers won't be transacting in the future. So this is how an RFM analysis or RFM table is being formed based on different metrics or based on different rules which we form. And remember, these rules would be specific to each industry, because for a retail, the time duration should be less. I mean, the time since last transaction should be less. Vis-a-vis, if you say some different industry, that usually the time period between two transactions is a lot higher. So you should keep also that factor into consideration while preparing the RFM table. The next level of segmentation, which is the steps 2, where we see that it is the merchant-wise segmentation. So what happens here is this is the stage 2 segmentation, where customer segments which are developed from the RFM table, that is active customers, risk customers, and churn customers, they are further categorized into different segments based on their usage of debit card under different merchant categories. So remember, we talked about preparing data in the data pre-processing state, that we would be finding out for each customer the proportion of the amount which a customer is spending under each merchant category. So that information would be used here, where we would be using different clustering algorithm like k-means, which would help us to cluster based on the total variance, or different analytical techniques, where we would be categorizing the customers based on their usage of debit card under different merchant categories. So a further drill down, an example could be 1, 2, 3 are active, risk, and churn, and under 1 they are further categorized into restaurant, ATM, retail, e-commerce, etc. Under 2 they are again further categorized. So it's like a tree which is formed. The tree, the main, you have different nodes 1, 2, 3, and under 1, 2, 3 you have again different nodes. So this is a 2 level of segmentation which we are aiming at. We are aiming this because we want to concentrate our marketing efforts more towards customer which are in a personalized manner, so that the customer feels privileged and feels that the offer is only meant for him or her. So this is the 2 level of segmentation which we are aiming at. So from this 2 level segmentation, what we achieve is the stage 1 result, where we told that this stage 1 analysis would be used to provide relevant offers to the existing users based on the segment. So this, if To answer it from the business perspective, the answer would be it helps in increasing the debit card usage of the existing customers. This doesn't solve the problem of my new customers, that if I want to increase the usage of my new customers, I don't want, so from an think from a bank perspective, that the bank doesn't want that my customers should first come on board. I should first analyze that these customers are not using debit card as required or as intended, or the number of transactions are not up to the mark as we had thought or we were expecting of, and then taking measures. So a bank would always want to be on the every organization would like to be on the proactive side, where they would like to take preemptive measure rather than taking measure after an event has occurred. So if you see at stage 2, we are looking at the preemptive measure, where we are trying to address a business problem, which is we are trying to increase the debit card usage of the new customers by taking preemptive measures. So how this is done is based on the segmentation or the different categorization which we have observed. This output is then feeded to the classification algorithm which we see, which would help us in predicting future customer behavior based on segmentation and customer variables. So if you see here, we would be using two kind of variables: the segmentation variables which we received from stage 1, and the customer level variables which we already have from the data and which we have assumed. So we'll first assign a unique value to clusters obtained in the above step based on RFM and merchant segmentation. Then we would use a machine learning algorithm like decision tree or random forest, which would be used to calculate the propensity of the customer using clustering and customer variables, where we would be able to tell that if in the future a customer with a demographic variable XYZ and other variables comes on board, I should be able to predict, or this algorithm should be able to predict, that this customer would be falling into this particular cluster. So if I predict that if tomorrow you come on, assuming that I am a bank and you are a customer, assuming that you are coming on board today, based on my algorithm, I would be able to predict that you would be falling in cluster number 3, in which it tells me that you would be more concentrated towards using debit card across restaurant category. So from today onwards, I would make sure that all the offers which you receive are more towards restaurant or towards restaurant category. And I would also like to see like what is the next best category which you would be looking at. I would accordingly try and target my campaign towards those categories as well. In this way, we would be able to take preemptive measures and increase the usage of these new customers. So this is the advanced analytics technique or machine learning algorithm which we are talking about. And in the stage 1, we are talking more from the existing customers perspective. So this is how we could address both the problems. The first problem being that the event has already occurred, that the existing customers are not using the debit card as much as intended. So we are trying to increase that based on the segmentation technique which we talk about. In the second stage, we're talking about increasing the usage of the new customers and how we could take preemptive measures in order to increase those into usage of new customers.